All right, welcome to Basecamp Briefings. This is our first session powered by Summit Strategy. We're so excited that you're here. So like any serious climb, success starts at the base camp. This is where we're going to break down complex RFPs, sharpen your BD and capture strategies, and give you the tools to navigate the terrain ahead. We started this series because we wanted to bring something fresh and new to the market. So there's not going to be any fluff, no BS, just real talk, real strategies to help you reach the summit. Today, we're diving into Army MAPS, one of the biggest contract opportunities of the year. With a $50 billion ceiling, fierce competition, and a tough scoring system, this is not just another IDIQ. MAPS is a strategic play that is going to require the right positioning and the right pursuit strategy to win. So we're here to break it down, break everything down, what you need to know, how to prepare, and the pitfalls to avoid so that you don't waste time or resources on a losing bid. So before we get started, a quick special thanks to our data partner, HireGov, who we use for market research, intel, solicitation data, and more. So my name is Kristen Maycumber. I'm the founder and CEO of Summit Strategy. I've spent my entire career helping government contractors and professional services firms win more, bid smarter, and position themselves for long-term success. At Summit, we specialize in strategic BD, proposal writing, marketing, and training, and we support our clients through complex pursuits and large-scale contract vehicles, just like MAPS, just like NASA SOUP 6 that we just finished, OASIS Plus, and others. I'm joined today by Donna Creason, a proposal manager with deep expertise in federal proposals, capture strategy, and compliance. And then we've also got Carol from our team monitoring the chat in LinkedIn and helping answer questions live. If we don't get to everyone's questions today live, we are going to compile those with our answers and send out after the event. So please feel free to send your questions below in the comment section. So again, today we're here to share practical insights, a healthy dose of radical candor, and important strategies to help you approach this opportunity with confidence and a winning mindset. All right, so here's our trail map. This is what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about the contract overview, what the gate criteria looks like, the proposal requirements, the evaluation process, pursuit strategy, most importantly, what do you need to do to win? And then what can you be doing now while we wait for the final RFP? All right, you're going to see a couple of these reality check slides throughout our presentation. This is where we're going to keep it real. Our first reality check is that the current draft RFP, which came out in early February, is a hot mess. Our team has identified over 60 questions that we need answered before we can successfully guide our clients with proposal development. We're also hearing some rumors that there's going to be another draft RFP. So we're hopeful that the Army is going to clean up a lot of these confusing discrepancies and questions. But we have built today's presentation around the current draft. So we're going to also be identifying where there's major gaps so that you can be in the know as well. All right, so let's talk about just a general overview of the contract, a little bit of the backstory and details for those of you that may not know this inside and out like us. So MAPS stands for the Marketplace for the Acquisition of Professional Services. It's an IDIQ contract, multiple award, and it's really designed to procure a wide range of IT and knowledge-based professional services and solutions for the Army, for DoD, and other federal agencies. You might have heard of ITES 3S, which is the IT Enterprise Solutions 3 service contract, and RS3, which is the Responsive Strategic Sourcing contract. So think of MAPS as the best of both worlds. It's bringing together the strengths of ITES 3S and RS3 into one streamlined contract for IT and professional services. Why does this matter? Because MAPS is not just a replacement or a new contract, it's an upgrade. It's really designed to enhance IT services and mission support by integrating emerging tech like AI. We know that's the hot word of the day lately, and big data analytics, which is really making it more aligned with what federal agencies actually need right now. ITES 3S and RS3 are set to sunset in 2027. So MAPS is stepping in as the next big contract vehicle for the Army. So just a little bit of history for ITES 3S. They've seen $3.6 billion in total obligations over its lifespan, with the past 5 years dominated by SAIC, IBM, Agile Defense, and others shown on this chart. Whereas RS3 has seen $8.6 billion in total obligations over its lifespan, with the past 5 years dominated by CACI, MAG Aerospace, General Dynamics, and others shown here on this chart as well. So why is the Army combining these two contracts? The goal is pretty straightforward from what we've gathered and what we know. It's really to cut redundancies, save time and money for both the government and industry, and obviously keep up with digital transformation. For vendors, this means a smoother path to Army contracts without the hustle or the hassle of juggling multiple contract vehicles. MAPS is really designed to simplify procurement and open up more opportunities, although that's a little bit misleading, which we'll talk about here in a second as well. So that brings me to this point. There are plans to make 100 awards in total, so 20 awards per each of the 5 domains, which you can see those listed here on the screen. And of course, they reserve the right to award more or less. We are hearing rumors again. The latest intel says that they're going to potentially award more than 100 awards. So that'll be interesting to see what that looks like in the final RFP. Each domain is going to have small business reserve requirements. So not set aside, it's just a reserve, which will include small business, woman-owned small business, hub zone, 8A, and the like. In the event that there's not enough qualified offers in a small business socioeconomic award category to fill the spots desired, the remaining spots are going to go to small businesses until they meet the amount of awards. In the event that there's not enough small businesses to fill those spots, then the remaining spots will go to larges. And then on the flip side of that, if there's not enough interest in the large business category, which I highly doubt that to happen, the remaining spots will be allocated to small business. So this is where it's going to get pretty interesting. And we've definitely got some intelligence and thoughts here. Starting with, MAPS is just not another Army contract. And it's really not even a new contract like a lot of people have been saying. It's the consolidation of ITES 3S and RS3, which means that every major player in the federal IT services arena is coming for it. Again, the Army's planning 100 awards total across those 5 domains, which sounds generous until you realize that hundreds, if not thousands, several thousands of companies are going to be bidding on this. So obviously you have all the incumbents of RS3 and ITES 3S, which is several hundred companies alone. More than 1,000 companies attended the industry day. I was there in November, tons of companies there. So the competition is going to be fierce. It's not going to be easy to win a slot on this contract. And then you might assume that small business participation, that small business reserve means that if you are a small business, you've got an edge. So if you think that your 8A status alone is a golden ticket on this one, it's not. The Army doesn't care. They are looking for mature, scalable businesses that can actually execute what they need. And the hard truth is that MAPS is going to reward businesses that can prove that they've successfully performed at scale. And just saying that you want to break into DoD and trying to use this as your entry point, it's not a strategy and it's not going to work. All right, so a couple details about the timeline. This is a 10-year contract with a 5-year base period and 1 5-year option. We've gone through several iterations from the RFI starting last September through the latest draft RFP, which was released in early February. They've said that the final RFP is going to be expected in about 5 weeks, with proposals due 30 days later. But like I mentioned earlier, we may have another draft RFP coming soon, so that may push the timeline. And then evaluations as of now are slated to be complete September 28th, with award expected November 17th. However, if there is another draft RFP released, that means that the final RFP and overall timeline might be pushed. We did hear that they've said that they're not in a rush. So that's interesting. And then let's also consider the current state of the federal government and all of the contract freezes, unfreezes, general chaos, it's no surprise that major procurements like MAPS might be delayed. The question is not just when the final RFP is going to drop, it's really how these shifting timelines and shifting requirements impact your capture strategy. So if you're not adjusting your overall strategy and resource planning accordingly, you really could be caught flat-footed. So now is really the time to stay flexible, monitor these changes closely, and position strategically, and really use this delay to help you and help influence the customer. We're going to talk about a couple things where, messy RFP requirements where we think there's an opportunity to influence to help get some of this cleared up and help again, especially for small businesses, help you position successfully. All right, I'm going to kick it over to Donna now.
Thanks, Kristen. So next, let's talk about the performance work statement and what type of work is included in MAPS. So as we have said, MAPS has 5 domains. You can bid on as many as you choose. Each domain has a primary NAICS code, which will be important later when selecting and qualifying your past performance projects. So each domain aligns with different services from engineering and IT to R&D and advisory support. So let's dive into each. The first domain is the technical domain. It has 6 functional areas focused on engineering, logistics, manufacturing support, and others. These functional areas are critical capabilities for ensuring the Army's operational readiness. The next domain is the management and advisory domain, which covers 7 functional areas focused on strategic planning, program management, and operational support, which are all key functions that drive efficiency and decision-making within the Army. The third domain is the RDT&E. It focuses on research, development, testing, and evaluation. These are all critical for advancing military innovation and readiness. And finally, the fourth domain is the largest. It has the most functional areas, 11. This is focused on cutting-edge technologies that drive modernization and efficiency across defense and government systems. And then finally, the last domain is the foundational IT domain. This covers core IT services essential to government operations, including help desk support, IT education and training, supply chain management, and independent verification and validation. This domain focuses on ensuring the stability, efficiency, and security of IT environments across agencies. So another reality check. Just because you can bid on multiple domains doesn't mean you should. We want to make sure that you choose your domain strategically. So you'll need to focus on where you have proven competitive past performance with excellent CPARs and PPQ ratings. So this is also where we're keeping an eye on how the government issues the final RFP. It's currently unclear if and how similar experiences will count. For example, does virtual reality count as an emerging experience? Over to Kristen.
All right, so let's walk through the gate criteria and proposal requirements. So you'll see the little bubbles there, the LB, the small b, the SB. So large business and small business, we're going to try to show the difference between what's required for larges versus smalls. All right, so first I got to give you a reality check and again, set the stage. The scorecard is ruthless. The MAPS RFP is going to use a point-based evaluation system, which again is similar to OASIS Plus if you bid on that. If you don't pass the initial gate criteria review, which is not scored, the rest of your proposal is not going to be evaluated. And because of the RFP wording, it's going to be hard to score points, and we don't yet know what the score will be needed to win. So most likely it's going to be about 90% of or more of the total possible points to be able to win. That's just my swag based on the size and nature of this competition. So that means that this is not a subjective evaluation. You either earn the points or you don't. There's no room for interpretation. If your experience does not match and check the exact boxes, it won't count. Partial credit doesn't exist. You need clear contract-backed proof that meets the scoring criteria word for word. Low-scoring bidders are not going to survive. The competition is too strong. The cutoff is going to be too high. So bottom line, you need to know your score before you submit. And if you're not scoring competitively about 90, 95% of those total points, You're just submitting a very expensive lesson. All right, so let's talk through the gate criteria, which in the current draft RFP is all documented in attachment 2. So these are mandatory requirements. If you don't meet them, you're not going to qualify. So CMMC level 2 and ISO 9001:2015 are required, but if you don't have them yet, proof of a scheduled third-party review might be accepted. There is a discrepancy in the current draft RFP between the proposal requirements and the eval criteria for ISO. So it may be 2013 and maybe 2015. We're not quite sure yet. Additionally, we think the CMMC requirement could be a huge issue because the ruling guiding CMMC only became effective in December. So pretty much no one is going to have a third-party CMMC level 2 in less than a year. However, it might be possible to establish a self-assessment to level 2. The RFP is silent on that subject as of now, so we will see how that ends up being in the final. A secret facility clearance is needed, so that's important for smalls to recognize if you don't have that. And then for larges, government-approved systems, accounting, purchasing, and property management demonstrate obviously that compliance and financial readiness. And while it's not a gate criteria for smalls, you should really think about making that investment soon, since we are seeing it more and more on these big vehicles and big RFPs. So the key takeaway here, again, is to verify that you meet these requirements before committing to a bid. Missing even one of these is going to disqualify you. They're not even going to get to actually read your proposal. All right, so let's talk about CPARs. CPARs are going to be pulled for all of the 5 NAICS codes each of those 5 under the domains over the last 3 years. The date for that 3-year time period is going to be based on the date of the final RFP release. So we'll see when that happens. For larges, if 15% or more of the element ratings are marginal or below, you're out. For small businesses, if 30% or more are marginal or below, then you're out there. And the gate criteria is different for CPARs is different than for qualifying projects, aka QPs criteria, which we're going to talk about in a second. If you get a single marginal or unsatisfactory rating on a CPARs, you get 0 points on that QP. So we need to think about how this folds into your overall strategy. Small businesses are going to have to submit copies of their certifications. Notably, this seems to exclude the many small businesses that don't have any socioeconomic certifications. And in my opinion, this might be something that goes away under the new administration. We've seen some trends going in that direction. So again, we'll see what that final looks like. All right, back to Donna.
Thanks again, Kristen. So let's jump into the proposal requirements. So this will be a one-step procurement, just so you're aware. So you'll be expected to submit your entire proposal at once. And what does this mean for you? It means that you'll need to be fully invested in developing your entire proposal without knowing if you'll pass the gate review process. If you make it past the gate criteria, you'll need to submit additional documents in your proposal. So again, these differ from large businesses to small businesses, which I'll note as we go through the specific requirements. First up is attachment 1, which is the cover letter. It's pretty straightforward. You'll see that you'll need to provide the point of contact, your proposed domain, business size, socioeconomic category, your cage code, your parent company cage code, and your company UEI. I just want to make a note that for the socioeconomic category, this is a requirement for small businesses only. Large businesses do not need to provide that. The second step is attachment 2, which is the gate criteria questions. Again, this is pretty straightforward, where you have to address these requirements along with providing the required supporting documentations in your proposal. So they're looking for small business certification, active security clearance, facility clearance, certifications, government approved purchasing system, accounting system, management system, and CPAR ratings. And we've also noted on the right-hand side which ones are applicable to small business and which ones are applicable to large. All right, so it seems great that small businesses can get points where large businesses can't. until you realize that's 3 more points you have to score to get to the top of the heap. So remember, purchasing, accounting, and property management systems are only gates for large business, not small. That's why small businesses can get points for them. So next up are still within, attachment 3. The next one is volume 1. So we're going to talk about systems, agreements, and certifications. One of many confusing issues is, why are points available for CMMC level 2 if it's also a gate criteria? Well, honestly, at this point, we're not 100% sure either. However, we're thinking this requirement might change to allow points, or at least allow you through the gate if you can show that you've begun the process. So what we think we know at this point is for CMMC level 2, there are options for third-party certification, or you can start the self-certification process now if the $100,000 investment doesn't make sense for you. For CMM level 3, we've concluded that this is a third-party certification only. Now on to volume 2. This is the past performance volume. This is where we start getting into the nitty-gritty of qualifying your projects for each domain. And it's also where the points start adding up for you. So you're allowed a maximum of 3 qualifying projects, also known as QPs, for each of your domain. So the contract type is pretty straightforward: single contract, single task order under FSS, or contract BPA. Those are your options for the contract type. Contract value is also pretty straightforward. Meet or exceed the minimum total contract value of $2 million. And then the past performance period is pretty straightforward at this point. The NAICS code for the QP of the domain, that's where things start to get a little sketchy. They're not so clear. As noted, this is a requirement for both large business and small business. And as a point of interest, there is no indication yet of how offerors are supposed to prove their experience. Now, let's get back to your QPs, your domain, and your NAICS code alignment. So the NAICS code of your QP must be in one of the five domain NAICS codes. So those are the ones that are highlighted in that orange color. However, your QP NAICS code doesn't have to be the same as the domain you're proposing on. I'll pause and let that sink in for a little bit. So basically what that means is it can be any one of the highlighted codes, which are the 5 overarching domain codes, or as shown, each domain has a few additional codes that are acceptable. And then an extra note, you will get points if your code does align to the domain. All right, once you've aligned your NAICS and your QP, the next step will be to check for relevance. So you can get up to 5 points per QP. It does seem straightforward at first. You'll get 5 points if your QP meets 100% of the technical capabilities. You'll get 3 points if it meets 75 to 95%, and so on. 2 points for 50 to 74%, 1 point, etc., and no points for not meeting. At this point, it's still unclear about what meeting the technical capabilities means. So we're hopeful this will be clarified in the next RFP release. So after we've checked the relevance for the QP, there are about 5 other past performance criteria that contribute to accumulating more points. Remember, this is all about the numbers. So we've already talked about relevance. Now we're going to look at the NAICS alignment, where you can get 1 point if it's domain-specific code. There's a recency criteria, which you can get 1 point if the period of performance ended within 2 years of the RFP release. Notably, the current wording implies that it must have ended within 2 years, meaning current ongoing contracts don't count. That's how we've interpreted the language at this point. We're hoping to be that will get clarified as well in the next RFP release. Next up is quality. You get up to 7 points per QP for quality, and this is based on your CPARs and your existing PPQ. The other criteria is total contract value. You can get up to 3 points if your contract value is greater than $50 million. And then the final criteria is retention. Again, you can get up to 10 points per QP for this. And I wanted to note, like I said, this is a numbers game. Each QP can have a maximum of 27 points each. And as you can see, this rolls up into, for both large business and small businesses, this rolls up to a potential 81 points for scoring. And now it's time for a reality check. This all sounds great, but here's the bottom line. It's you can't fake past performance. You either have what they want or you don't. And also we've noted that this is a numbers game. So they don't want your well-written technical approach. This isn't like a regular proposal. This isn't time for creative storytelling either. It's all about receipts and it's all about numbers. Lastly, for large businesses, we just wanted to note you'll need to submit a small business subcontracting plan in accordance with FAR 19.704. And as always, important to note, what happens when you've developed the best high-scoring possible proposal ever? Final documents will need to be submitted on Army's CHESS portal. All right, now that we know what goes into the proposal, let's talk about how to be evaluated. The top 20 per domain will move to the next evaluation phase. So the government will use the DORA bot to assess contractor responsibility. The bot actually pulls from SAM and the Federal Awardee Performance and Integrity Information System literally in 5 minutes. So this bot helps the Army contracting officials determine if a prospective contractor is responsible or not. So as mentioned earlier, large businesses must have an approved small business subcontracting plan that meets the FAR requirements. Awards go to qualified offerers who are deemed responsible, technically acceptable, and scoring in the top 20. So the government does plan to award without discussions, but they may conduct them if needed. So let's talk about tiebreakers. So in the event of a tie, the government will compare CPARs or PPQs, the exceptional ratings, and the very good ratings. So I just want to note that they will use the GATE criteria assessment of all your CPARs and PPQ ratings from the last 3 years, not the ratings from the QPs that you submitted with your proposal. Another important thing to note is that the government has also said that there will be future on-ramps in case you aren't successful this time around or you aren't quite ready to bid. And another reality check. We can't say this enough. This is purely a numbers game. So your score needs to be hitting about at least 90% of the available points for you to be competitive. So scoring is black and white. If you don't meet a requirement exactly, you don't get the points. It's that simple. And the key takeaway is winning means that you need to maximize your points, not just meet the minimum requirements for each of the criteria. And now back to Kristen.
All right. Thanks, Donna. So I just want to recognize real quick, I think our team's having some tech difficulties with responding to the questions live, but we are gathering them. So if you keep putting them in the chat, we're going to answer all those in a document and send that out later because I know there's lots of questions. And some of the questions I've seen, we don't yet know the answer to because it's confusing and discrepant. There's those discrepancies in the current draft document. So anyways, just keep putting those in the chat. We'll grab those here after. All right, so now that we walked through all the details, let's talk about your pursuit strategy. And again, let's keep it real. So it's important to recognize that this may be an uphill battle for a lot of companies to prime. I'm definitely not trying to be negative, but I just want to keep us honest. First up, everyone in the entire world, it feels like, is watching and talking about this vehicle. Many companies are touting it as a shiny new vehicle where anyone can win, but we have to be real about that. Many of the ITES 3S and RS3 incumbents are likely going to be in a great position to compete. This means that that pool of 100 awards gets whittled down quite quickly. We'll see if the small business remains a priority, especially under the new administration. We'll also see if the final RFP gives us any more detail about how many small business reserves will exist under each domain. As an aside, this seems to be a trend in Army procurements lately. The Army Modern Software Development, the MSD contract, was planning small business reserves in a previous iteration of that RFP before that got frozen and paused. And then the Managing Army's Human Capital Innovation, Integration, and Implementation, aka MAHC3, is currently planning 10 small business reserves. So again, we'll keep an eye on that. CMMC, ISO, and facility clearances create that financial and administrative burden, especially for smalls. This is a hot topic. At the industry day in November, there were tons of questions and commentary to the Army about these requirements and how it's prohibitive for smalls. And so we've seen that it has continued to stick in the draft RFPs versions. So we'll see again what that looks like in the final. For CMMC specifically, we did some research on this, and DoD expects that contractors are going to invest about $4 billion in implementation over the next 20 years. So for smalls that are aiming for that level 2 cert, we're talking north of $100,000 for a third-party assessment. For level 3, initial investments are around $2.7 million for that third-party assessment, plus substantial annual costs. So we'll see there. And again, there's still confusion about whether they meant CMMI or CMMC. So again, we'll kind of clear that up, hopefully in the final. There's also a time concern. So it takes 12 to 18 months to prepare for those third-party assessments, plus another 9 to 15 months of waiting time for the assessment to actually happen due to the current shortage of qualified assessors. And then lastly, there are still conflicting requirements in that draft RFP. Like we keep saying, our teams identified those 60 plus questions that we have to get answered so that we can know what a compliant proposal looks like and a high scoring proposal looks like. And then, related to the scoring, it's super unclear right now. Can you get all the points? I don't know. We think you probably need to hit about 90 to 95% of those possible scores as they're only evaluating the top 100. And there's also a discrepancy in the total points available. So one place says 92 for large businesses, one place says 89 points. So again, lots of confusing things that have to get sorted in the final docs. So in my humble opinion, these criteria are written to the largest of the largest, especially the incumbents on ITES 3S and RS3. Smalls are going to really need to determine if they can get a high enough score or if they can only succeed if they team with other companies to max out their score. So with only 20 awards per domain and who knows how many small business reserves per domain, if any, if you can't get 90% or more of that possible points, you probably won't get an award. And again, this is assuming that teaming is even allowed, which it's not under the current draft RFP. Additionally, few, if any, smalls will have even one, much less 3 contracts that cover 100% of those technical capabilities in any domain. Some of those capabilities are also radically different from each other. Like the emerging IT domain has 11 technical capabilities, whereas others have 6 or 7. So do you have to meet all 11 to get those full points? We don't know yet. Even if you take advantage of the lack of specific instructions and claim experience in all 6 or 7 or 11 of those technical capabilities, how many smalls are unicorns that have, even one, again, much less 3 contracts of 50 million total contract value, which is what's required to get all 3 points possible for that dollar value criteria. So what now? Where do we go from here? What are some suggestions to take right now? So first, while we wait for another potential draft RFP and eventually the final, don't get distracted. The timeline's going to shift. Preparation cannot stop. Stay engaged, monitor updates. We're keeping a close eye on this. That website URL at the bottom of the screen is where we are publishing our updates. So every time the government issues an amendment or updated, Section L, Section M, we are updating our scorecard criteria and our webpage. Start your assessment now. So identify where you have those gaps in compliance, in certifications, past performance before it's going to be too late. Run a self-assessment against the scoring criteria to see if you're competitive. If you have gaps, secure strong partners now. If they're going to let you use those partners as qualifying projects and past performance, we'll see. Waiting until the last minute when that RFP drops is going to be too late. All of you that are interested as vendors should really start to work your contacts if you haven't already, to influence a change to the RFP, because as worded, it says the offer may not use qualifying projects of their teaming partners. So again, influence the RFP. If you've got relationships at the Army, go talk to them. Given the scoring rubric, this effectively limits competition to the largest of the largest. And then again, work teaming to see if you can bid as a team of small businesses, if they're going to let that be allowed. And if not, establish relationships with one or more companies likely to win so that you'll have an in as a subcontractor for when task orders start coming out. For smalls, the right strategy is everything, obviously. Whether that means strengthening your compliance, figuring out where you have gaps, forming smart teaming partnerships if those are going to be allowed, and then making a well-informed bid, no bid decision. Success is really going to come from planning ahead and positioning wisely. And so that has to start now. And of course, if you need help, you can always call in the experts and, hey, by the way, that's us. This is exactly what we do. So super quick, here's how we can help on MAPS. So before the RFP, before the final RFP, we can do your scoring assessment for you. We can help you make a go, no go decision. We can help you build out your pursuit strategy. After the RFP, we can help with proposal management, compliance checks, scoring optimization, all that good stuff. We have built an extensive scorecard mapping all of the requirements, all of the potential scores. We've got a whole Excel workbook built out that we're walking our clients through now. So if you need an extra set of eyes on your potential score and help you figure out how to optimize that score, we can certainly help with that. So our final reality check, closing thoughts, MAPS is not for the weak. The Army is making sure that only serious enterprise-ready businesses are going to make it through. If you don't have those certs, if you don't have the past performance, if you don't have a real strategy, you may not be able to bid on this. If they end up allowing teaming partners, make sure that you find the right partners, get strategic, play that long game. The companies that do this right are going to be set up for a decade of federal business because this is a very large contract with a large spend. And then up next in our Basecamp briefings, we're going to be talking about Fed to SLED. So with federal contracts getting frozen, delayed, and straight up canceled right now, that does not mean that your revenue needs to take a hit. So you should look at state, local, and education, aka SLED, because sometimes that can be a lot faster. There's fewer compliance headaches and a whole lot less red tape. So our next LinkedIn Live is going to be April 3rd. If you open your camera and scan that QR code, it'll take you right to the page to register. And again, we're just going to cut through the noise and get straight to what matters and tell you how to win. So with that, we're going to close today's session. My contact information is there. If you want to talk further detail, that QR code there goes straight to my calendar. You can book some time. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties about the questions. We will figure that out for the next one. This is our first LinkedIn Live in a couple years. So we need to work through that technical difficulty, but the recording will live here on this page on LinkedIn. So you'll be able to visit this again, send it to other people, and then we will work on compiling those questions and get that out here shortly to everyone that attended. So we appreciate everyone joining for our first Basecamp briefings, and we hope to see you in a couple weeks for our Fed to SLED one. So thank you.